Hello everybody, this is Sergey Baklykov. Let me remind you that recently I've got an electronic stabilizer. I already had the time to test it and practice a little bit. And actually I think that I'm ready for the first videos to make with the help of this, so to make my walking videos more, steady. And I guess the first videos that I will do is the first walking through my residential complex, Tsar's capital, and the second video is walking through the neighborhood area, Nevsky Prospect, Poltavskaya Street, and so let's get it started. I begin my way from, if I can say so, lobby of the hallway where is my apartment located. Now open the street door and getting into the courtyards. The courtyard, which is in Saint Petersburg, people call a yard well, because by form it looks like a form of water well. By form is the space which is completely surrounded by an inside facades of the building. Now, thankful to my super wide angle lens and an electronic stabilizer, you can comfortably see this. If in the historical Saint Petersburg the yard wells like this was created naturally because of some architectural specifics of the city, then here it is more like a tribute to the traditions of the historical Saint Petersburg style. So now crossing the courtyard, I exit through the wicket on the main gates of the residential building, leaving off private territory and appear at Kremenchukskaya Street. This is the street located in the central district of Saint Petersburg, a part of its historical city center. And that's actually the street where mostly this residential complex called Tsar's capital located. Now you can see how is my and most of residential buildings here looks like from outside. At the moment I go to behind the building to show you the parking places. Here we have 8 parking facilities where in each of them 8 floors. You can ask to buy the parking place here and own it as just to rent for $40 a month. I think it makes much more sense just to rent it than to buy it for an absolutely ridiculous price, which is about $25,000. For this price you can rent it for 52 years. Besides that, here's a lot of free parking places around, but these places are not secured, of course. Now you can see how is the windows located asymmetrically on a facade of the building. This is a poor try to make these buildings to look a little less ugly, but they are still very boring compared to the traditional historical architecture of Saint Petersburg, which is all around this residential complex, but only not in residential complex itself. But still, I've got an apartment here in this place because, however, this is a new buildings, new stuff, and still located in the historical city center, just 2 minutes by walk from Nevsky Prospect, Nevsky Avenue, the main street of Saint Petersburg. Look how is the sidewalk separated from the roads with such metal columns. Unfortunately, for too many people, this is the only way to explain that you don't have to park on the sidewalks. Not even explain, but just to block such a possibility at all. Because people are ready to damage the curbs and sidewalks, but nobody ready to damage their cars. I think this electronic stabilizer is great. I see it still have some shakes, especially up and down, but that's because no matter how good is your Steadicam, you also need to practice a special kind of walk while you're filming with a Steadicam. I never practiced it yet. However, I think stabilization is good enough, even now, and the picture is at least not dizzy. So now I'm turning to the central alley of my residential complex. It's such a sidewalk that goes through all neighborhoods between 2 lines of the buildings and stuck into the beautiful church. The church, which is called Feodorovsky Cathedral. This is what makes a real beautiful look from any place of the central alley here. The Tsar's capital residential complex founded just 5 years ago in 2013. Nowadays here is 14 residential buildings. Most of the first floors of the buildings are already busy with the commercial business. Supermarkets, one of them works 24/7, cafe, steak bar, burger bar, express medical tests, clinic, dental clinics, computer cyber club, cosmetics and chemical households, drugstore, flower boutique, beauty salons, and in some parts of some residential buildings there are so-called apart hotels. So if you will come to Saint Petersburg, wonderful northern capital of Russia, you can get a place in an apart hotel in one of these residential buildings and get a nice steak and wine bar next to it. I already mentioned to you this residential complex located in the historical city center of Saint Petersburg, where mostly an old buildings which is 200 years old. These historical buildings are under a very strict architectural protection. Not only it is strictly prohibited to demolish them, but in many of them it is even prohibited to change an old wooden frames for windows and replace it with the new plastic frames, because they have a different style and interrupt the original mind of an architect. But what about this area? How come the brand new residential complex appeared here? The thing is, this land located behind the Moscow railway station of St. Petersburg. It is called Moscow railway station because, and historically and now, the trains between St. P and Moscow arrive and depart from that railway station. And in this area used to be just warehouses, not historically, not architecturally, hadn't any value. That's why it was able to demolish the warehouses and to develop the whole residential complex here. Now you can see an empty piece of land in the middle of this residential complex. That's the land for social facilities, the school and kindergarten. But usually developers are not hurried to construct them because it's not as profitable as residential buildings where many people pay loads of money for their square meters. What about the price for an apartments here? The price starts from $2,000 per square meter, or about $200 per square foot. Now, when we are getting closer to the church, you actually can start seeing this. If you will be here, you will perfectly see it from even much longer distance, but through this super wide angle lens, the objects that is far away seem even more distant than they are. The church is a real pearl of this place, which is full of such minimalistic and square buildings. This is a lounge bar where you can smoke hookah, drink an alcohol and play PS4. The next place on the first floor of this building is Mental Arithmetics Center. That's something like an advanced courses of arithmetics for kids to develop their brains. Now let's turn to the right. We'll show you more of the commercial places here. This is already outside of residential complex, but the red building is the clinical hospital named after Dr. and Professor Botkin, Sergei Botkin. Now, this is a CK, Center of Cyber Sports. Actually, just a computer game club oriented for multiplayer games on PC and sometimes PS4. Even though now everyone have computers at home, people are coming here for team play and live communication. Next is a beauty salon, mostly for women. Hairdressing, hair dyeing, manicure and things like that. And the next place that goes after beauty salon is Burger and Steak Bar. I've been there once. Design is not very comfortable, but steak was okay. Also, it's cheaper here than in SW, Steak and Wine Bar behind the corner, where they charge $9 just for a domestic lemonade. Next place is Trifit or Trifit, studio of personal trainings. This is like a small fitness club, but there's only personal trainings. Next door is Beer Culture, beer store. You can drink beer here, then go for personal trainings to kill all of those beer calories. Move forward, and that's the Soviet drugstore, Sovetskaya Apteka. The drugstore, which is new but designed as it's from the USSR times. At least the font on the label is typical Soviet font created by Rodchenko, popular Soviet artist and graphic designer. His style is known as constructivism and productivism. This is a store which is called Magnets for cosmetics and chemical households. This is also a very big chain of grocery supermarkets. They have started to sell cosmetics and chemical households actually not that long ago. Getting back to the main alley, we can see a small playground for kids and more companies here. In vitro is a medical tests clinic. Fruweg, the store for only fruits and vegetables, as stated from the name, and bakery. And that's the store called Gradusy, degrees, an alcohol-only store. And also one more drugstore is next here. And that's SW, Steak and Wine Bar, the place with a really nice design and summer terraces. You can see the tables are staying right in the street. But it's not too cheap place. Now this is a Thai spa, place where you can get a massage, called Crown Thai Spa. Allure. This is the store of wallpapers and curtains. Russians loves the wallpapers, so I believe the store is getting enough of revenue here. The place called Houston. Somehow this is the name of dental design clinic. Wanna correct your teeth? Come here to Houston. This brown building was one of 3 first buildings here. One of those which is right next to the church and bordering with that truly historical part of Saint Petersburg. For this reason, the facade of this building and 2 other buildings behind it looks much better than later buildings. I would better get an apartment here, but it was built yet in 2013 and now everything is just sold out. So yes, these first 3 residential buildings are really much better than later ones. The design and material of facade is much better. Also here they have an underground parking. Short distance to Fyodorovsky Cathedral is also gives more beauty to this part of Tsar's capital. But still, these buildings are not that great for this complex to be called Tsar's capital. Russian Tsars never lived in a houses like this. But sounds good those. Tsar's capital. 24/7 grocery store. However, an alcohol here is prohibited for sale after 10 p.m. If in this video we just walk through the residential complex, then in the next video we will walk around the whole neighborhood. It's going to be much better because we'll walk through the beautiful historical architecture of the city center. Now click the next video on your screen to watch and continue of this walk. Comment, like, subscribe. See you in the next video.